Oh, hello, people of Twitchland. How's it going? So many beautiful people in the chat. We've got Taiwan Time and Claire Cares, of course, WonderGoon. We'll get to WonderGoon in a minute. Just you wait. We got Jay Punzel, Sable. Welcome everyone. I'm so excited to have you. If you don't know me, hello, I'm Abbers. I play video games here on Twitch sometimes. I also interview other streamers about streaming sometimes. And so that is what you've come into. It is a podcast called Why We Go Live. And our guest today is the incomparable, wonderful, amazing WonderGoon. And I'm gonna play a clip here so that you can get to know him a little bit better.
Hello, chat. My name is Bruce. It's good to see you. I just full disclosure, I am a dinosaur, and I enjoy eating meat and wandering around and saying hello to people. So, hello, Jay Punzel. Hello. Jay Punzel, are you made of meat? Can I eat you?
Now ain't this a surprise?
For you? Why are you coming towards me? That scared the shit out of me when this happened. Don't go near the dragon! What the fuck? No! Look at this. Do you see this? Is there a graphic right here in front of my character, or is it just black to you?
It's just black.
Ooh, what is in?
So whatever is there, I do not see it. it's just all like, oh shit! I just fell off the ledge. I died.
Okay, well that answers my question.
That was awesome.
People tell me I have a great laugh, but that's a pretty good laugh right there, I gotta say. Everyone, welcome the amazing WonderGoon. WonderGoon, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's so good to
Hello,
see you.
chat. My name is Bruce.
Oh
Is
my
it
God, I
okay
love
if I
it.
pop in? Hello.
A surprise puppet appearance.
Hi. Don't tell Theodore that I'm here, but because he might get upset.
Wait, who's Theodore?
Abbers, are you made of meat?
I guess. I'm made of human meat, I guess. Oh, what a start. Incredible.
Sorry.
Good. No, I love it. You have nothing to apologize for.
The clip with Bruce there there's another dinosaur. It's a much longer clip, but I cut it down for your channel trailer.
Yeah.
Your intro video, but Theodore is the more aggressive dinosaur. So
I see.
Hello there.
Oh shit.
I want your meat. I want everyone's meat. Jay Punzel's in the chat. Come here and give me your meat, Jay.
I was so not prepared.
I'm sorry.
No, I love it. It's so good. All right, Tantif, we're just gonna go ahead and go with it. Tantif says to ask about the bee dance.
We don't
Do
talk
I dare?
about the bee dance.
We don't talk about it, Tantif. Sorry, we don't talk about it.
That's a channel point trailer or a channel point reward on my channel when someone redeems it. I have to do a dance, and I'll do the dance right now for you,
I thought we
real
don't talk
quick.
about it, and now he's going for it. Here it is. Here it is.
Hey, hello there, chat.
This is
That's
the
a
most unhinged start to a podcast, and I love it, and I'm here for it. I'm so excited. Yeah, first rule of B-Dance, we don't talk about B-Dance.
That's
But
right.
we do it. We do the
Right.
B-Dance.
Just a little sample for those who want to come to the channel.
Perfect. Well, you know what? Let's just jump into it with that. What a beautiful segue. So WonderGoon, take me back. When was your very first stream? Do you remember your first stream?
Excuse me. My first stream was around well, it was in 2020. No, I take that. Late 2020,
Okay.
I think. And I had just started watching Cargos and the hardcore challenge and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching Quissy TV at the time, and I joined her guild, Chill, and my very first stream was a member of her guild. I was leveling an orc warrior named Kurgar, and who I still have.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my very first stream. Was a Kurgar stream, and then I started streaming hardcore after that. So
Nice.
late middle 2020.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact date. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Late middle 2020 is perfect. Can you take me back, like maybe just like a few weeks leading up to that, or months leading up to that? Like what led to your decision to be like, okay, I'm gonna try streaming?
I was inspired by Cargos.
Okay.
I thought, this streaming thing looks easy. Boy, was I wrong. And I thought, this looks like fun. I'll give it a try. And
Mhm.
there was a little bit of an influence about, and I was maybe the wrong reason, but I saw that he was getting a lot of donations and subscriptions, and he was making money at it. And I was like,
Mhm.
I don't have a job. This looks easy. I don't have to leave my house. Hey, cool. I can make money. That's also not been true. And so, yeah, so that was why I started. So
Yeah.
it's kind of inspired me to do it.
Well, and I don't think, this idea of it being the wrong reason, I don't think it's the wrong reason. I think maybe like it's unrealistic expectations, but
Right.
we all need
Right.
money to survive, right? And
Right.
especially during 2020, not being able to leave your house, like that totally makes sense to me. I think that's completely valid.
Yeah, a lot of people talked about how trying lockdown was. I can't leave my
Mm-hmm.
house. I was like, I don't leave my house anyway, so it was just like it's just another reason not to leave my house because I
Yeah.
don't want to get sick.
Yeah, totally.
So
That makes sense. Well, and I think everyone was kind of in a different place with that in terms of like what
right.
your danger level was, how seriously I say was, but like it's ongoing, right? So, I think everyone experienced something very similar in that time in terms of it being very, very serious and very scary during quarantine specifically, right? And at the
Mhm.
same time, for some people, it's much more serious than others.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And at the time, my stepfather was alive, and
Mm-hmm.
he was elderly and with diabetes and stuff, and we weren't sure if COVID would affect people with diabetes or how it would affect them and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Excuse me. My mom was 72 at the time, and she's 74 now, and it's like, I don't want to bring it home. My wife was working out of the house, and actually, when it first started, I was working out of the house. Now that I think about it,
Mm.
we were both working retail. I didn't want to bring it home. My wife didn't want to bring it home because
Yeah.
it would have killed both my parents, and we were living with them. And yeah, so we were very conscious of that kind of thing. So, and then after my stepfather died, my mom actually got COVID, and
Mm.
but she thankfully had a very mild case of it. So
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so when you started, I think that you started around a time where there was kind of this peak of people coming into
hmm
streaming. Had you, I mean, I know you said you watched Cargos beforehand. Had you used Twitch more than kind of that prior to starting to stream?
I about 2, maybe 3 years before I started streaming is when I actually established a Twitch account, and the entire reason
Mm-hmm.
I did that was because of D&D Beyond. For some reason, you needed a
Oh,
Twitch account to use D&D Beyond at the time.
really?
Yeah,
I must have
and
joined
so
D&D Beyond after. That's so odd to me.
yeah, I you needed it to create a character for 5th edition, and I was in a 5th edition
Okay.
game at the time, and they were using that. So I was like, what do I need a Twitch account for? What the hell? I mean, and I was like, what the hell is Twitch?
Right.
I didn't really have any idea of it. And so I created it and I started looking around on it. And I was like, oh, okay. It's like the people are playing video games. And
Mm-hmm.
I just sort of went, whatever, and moved on. Right.
Yeah.
And then I started watching, I was on YouTube one day and I was like, a video popped up on my algorithm about World of Warcraft. And it was a guy, I don't know, you probably heard of him, named Mad Season Show.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh, his videos are pretty good. And then Cargos popped up on the algorithm and I started watching him and started watching him live. And that led me back to Twitch. And I was like, oh, well, I'm glad I already have an account.
Yeah.
So,
That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah.
And so when you started to then getting affiliate, do you know how long it took you to get affiliate?
10 months.
Okay. And so
Yeah.
what was that journey like for you?
Um, Very frustrating
Yeah.
because again, it's managing of expectations, right? I mean,
Sure.
I in my mind when I first started, it was like I'm going to turn on the stream and people are going to love me and shower me with
Mm,
subscriptions and
yeah.
I'm great. I'm just as good as Cargos, if not better. And then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
found out that's not true. So it was a hard lesson to learn, but I'm
Yeah.
glad I learned it early on, and I'm still not thinking I'm better than everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a hard lesson to learn, but life is full of hard lessons, and that was one of them. So
Yeah. Well, I think you're not alone in that. Like I know that some people get affiliate seemingly instantly, right? And some
mhm,
people it takes literal years for them to get affiliate. So,
yeah,
10 months is somewhere between those two. But I can imagine that kind of seeing other people around you, like I can't even imagine, like I know that like it's hard not comparing yourself to others, especially when you're watching other streamers for inspiration and to kind of figure out
right.
how you want to go about streaming, right?
And yeah, and I saw people who started after me get affiliate within 3 or 4 days, and I'm
Dang.
like, I was sitting there thinking, what do they bring to the table that I'm not?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I would watch their streams and I'd try to compare myself. Okay, well, they're being more personable, they're joking around more. So I started adding in that a little bit more. And now I have, you know, puppet shows. So,
Yeah, love
so
that.
it's definitely been a lesson in evolution. The
Yeah.
evolution of a streamer. I can make a documentary about it. The evolution of WonderGoon.
Yeah,
From
absolutely.
arrogant ass to whatever this is.
Well, and I'm surprised. I've never thought of you as arrogant. That is not an adjective at all that has come up for me. So that's fascinating that that's kind of how you see yourself. And grant, like I think I've been following you not since the beginning, but I've been following you for a while.
Hmm.
So it's interesting to me that that's kind of how you saw yourself in that moment.
Right. Yeah.
Where is the line between being arrogant and being confident in your ability for you? Like, what is the difference there?
For me, and this goes back to my own sense of self worth and my own sense of
Mm-hmm.
self esteem, which
Mm-hmm.
has always been very low
Yeah.
in my life. Eh, any type of self confidence I regard as arrogance
Interesting.
and uh, narcissism almost, right? Because if I sit here and say, I'm a pretty good streamer, I've got a decent amount of followers, there's a following there, people show up in my streams,
Mm-hmm.
people seem to like me, I think I'm being arrogant because surely, and then the little voices in my head are like, people don't like you. They,
Mm.
what are you doing? They're they're delusional or you're delusional for thinking they like you, so it constant battle of self-worth and depression and that sort of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the mental health piece of it plays a huge role, right?
huge role,
Yeah.
and I've struggled with mental health my entire life.
Yeah.
So um it's something that is just a part of me, and I have to
Hmm.
work through it. We were actually talking about therapy and so forth. That came up last night on my podcast.
Yeah.
We were talking about how we we need to count the little wins. The little victories will add up to big victories.
Absolutely.
And uh, just getting out of bed sometimes is a W for the day.
Yes. Absolutely.
So it's just a matter of building that confidence. So
Yeah. Yeah. Have you found ways to build your confidence in streaming?
yes, I have. I If you look on my channel down in the about section, I have like a benchmark type list set up, like
Mm-hmm.
first follower, first subscriber, first donation, 100th follower, 200th follower, I think is listed for 500th follower, whatever. And so when I get those benchmarks, I list out the person's name and I'm like, okay, I've hit this plateau, or I've hit this. This is an accomplishment. Because I never really thought that. I mean, in the back of my mind, I never really thought I'd get more than 5 or 10 followers. Uh,
Hmm.
and I can, like I joked last night, I know 7 people, and that's it. So I never really thought I would get to, as of the time of the beginning of this video, I have, I think, 281 followers.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and just to me, it's like there's 281 people out there who think I'm okay to look at least, and they like my content enough to want to see it again.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge W for me, um, for so many reasons.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. That is huge because when you think about that number, like I love this, people talk about it often, this kind of comparison of like, think about that many people like in your home, for example, or like, I mean, that's a huge number.
yeah,
And that is a huge accomplishment. And I so identify with this fascinating, this idea of like this back and forth between like, I'm great, I'm the best, I'm gonna be so good at this, to being like, I'm never going to have anyone follow me. Like, I'm never going to have anyone watch me. So that
and
back and forth, I relate with.
and for me, it's feast or famine. It's
Mm,
There's no middle ground. It's no, oh, I'm decent enough, or
yeah.
I'm mediocre enough. I mean, we talk about what's the word, uh, imposter syndrome,
Yes.
and I think that weighs into it too.
Sure.
I'm either gonna be the worst streamer in existence, or I'm gonna be the best streamer in existence, and it's gonna tend towards, for me, it's gonna tend towards the worst. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at least mentally.
And so
So
mentally kind of feeling that way about it, how do you, or maybe even why do you push through that and continue to stream?
I like I said earlier, I don't work outside the home.
Mm-hmm.
And so streaming for me is my social activity. I'm an
Yeah.
introvert by nature, but when I turn on the camera, I can perform,
Yeah.
and kind of that scratches that social need for interaction and so
Mm-hmm.
forth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that's primarily why I do it. Um, I do like talking with chat. I love it when I have people in the chat. Of course, I think every streamer does. Um, but when I first started, I had nobody, and I'm like, Why aren't people showing up? I mean, But then again, I was being, I had a bad attitude, and I've cleaned that up, or at least tried to over the years and everything. But um, and I completely lost what I was talking about.
No, you're good. I mean, streaming to no one is something that every single streamer at some
Right,
point does, right?
right.
What has that experience been like for you? Those moments where it's like, okay, I'm here and there's no one else here. What do I do?
Yeah.
Like what is that like when that happens for you?
Uh, well, when I'm alone in the house, I talk to myself out
Yeah.
loud,
Yeah.
right? And I'm a writer. I'm working on writing a novel and everything, so I work out plot details by talking them out. I work out dialogue between characters, by talking it out, taking the different roles and so forth. And well, what about adding this flavor and adding that flavor and that kind of thing? So I was like, well, talking to myself is something I do anyway.
Mhm.
So maybe if I just talk to myself on stream, that would make a difference,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so that's what I just sort of did. And it eventually, and at first, there is some self consciousness there of who wants to hear me talk about crap. And
Yeah.
then, I just, it got better as it went on. And now I'll sit and talk about anything and pity the poor fool who happens to come into the chat. So
I love that.
a
No,
lot of my stuff is just stream of conscious stuff.
yeah.
So
I think that self-talkers make the best streamers. I think, or maybe not
mm,
even the best streamers, but it comes to them so much more naturally, I think, than people that don't talk to themselves, right?
right,
Like,
yeah.
so I get that. Yeah. What are the biggest changes you think from when you first started streaming to now, what your stream is like?
Quality of the product and the
Mm-hmm.
product being the stream, right? Production value.
Mm-hmm.
When I started the very first stream, I had no overlay at all. It was just the game, no camera, no, nothing on it. And so it was just raw gameplay footage. You can turn it down and guess what's going on if you're, a longtime WoW fan or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't need my voice there. In fact, my voice was really, really loud and the game sounds were really, really low. So it was a matter of trying to, and I'm still having problems with adjusting the sound
Same.
levels. And it's like last night I was really, really loud. Kessidrith was really low. Winky was really low. So I had to adjust it on the fly and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Um, I'm not a sound engineer. So I don't, I'm learning as I go.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so.
Yeah. I think that's something that people don't necessarily realize. Like you talked about this idea of like when you just watch streamers, it's like, oh, that's easy, right? And I don't think
Right.
people realize that it's like if you're streaming, you are not just playing a video game. You are a sound engineer. You are a producer. You are making sure that all of these different technical things behind the scenes are working. So I think
Hmm.
that, part of why I started this podcast is that to me, anyone who takes the time to download OBS and actually set up everything and hit the go live button, you are a streamer because that is work.
Right. Yeah. Kessidrith is asking you ever get over that. Are you referring to sound problems?
Because I would imagine
I'm
no.
guessing he's referring to sound problems.
I I would guess, based on the people that I've talked to, yeah, mixing it right. Like I
Mixing it right.
imagine that you never do. I think that well, and I don't know. I'd love to hear your take on that. What do you think?
Last night I think we did okay, but it's definitely something I need to sit down and work out as far as um, watching a YouTube video or some kind of sound mixing for dummies kind of thing and trying to work it out a lot better because it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a skill I have not yet mastered.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on it. Hopefully it'll be better.
Yeah.
So
I think it's just human nature with any kind of skill, but particularly with something that is performing, like streaming is, that you're naturally going to always want to improve and get better. And so, even if you do have, great sound and great mixing, I think that there's always going to be something that you want to tweak. Like, and I don't know, maybe
right.
that's different for other people, but I would say in general, yeah, I think that's just part of human nature and wanting to be good at something.
Right. I think if you aren't tweaking something, if you aren't saying, "Oh, I could move this 3 pixels over" or something like that is
Mm-hmm.
in regard to an overlay, I think you've hit a point where maybe you're too complacent
Mm,
and you're not trying to improve,
yeah.
you know. So I'm constantly tinkering with this or moving this around, and oh, what does this look like? And does that look okay? Can they see the screen? Because I transmit in 720p
Mm-hmm.
because my internet connection and my computer won't handle 1080p,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like, I have a smaller canvas to work with. So it's like, I want to show the most of the game as I can. And my stuff is off to the sides, in the corners, up top, because, mostly people are there to see hardcore World of Warcraft or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm only like a small part in the corner, so I want them to be able to see everything. But so I tinker constantly with my overlays and stuff. And I think if you stop tinkering, in a way you've failed a little bit because you're not trying to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Even
Mm-hmm.
if you think it's a perfect overlay or a perfect mixing or whatever, there's always room for improvement.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
so my production values have definitely gone up from when I first started.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe not very much, but they've gone up.
Yeah.
So
Well, and where's this
did I
line
answer your
to?
question or did I just talk?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you did.
Okay.
Well,
All
this
right.
can just be a conversation. It's whatever we want it to be, Goon. We are the conductors of this train.
Woohoo!
um, this line I'm constantly struggling with, this line of like complacency in terms of wanting to improve and messing with things versus being kind to yourself and recognizing what I'm going to put out there, what I'm going to put out there, and it's going to be enough, even if it's scuffed. You know what I mean? Um,
Right.
are there ways that you've been able to kind of manage that or walk that line?
I think yes. I think that when I hit the go live button, I have to be satisfied with what goes out
Mm-hmm.
because that's the best I can do in the moment.
Yeah.
And if I another thing that I've had a hard time coming to terms with is if people like me, they're gonna show up.
Mm-hmm.
If people want to watch, they're gonna show up. Now, you add in, you have to remember people are busy, they have jobs, they have families, they have pets, they have children, they have other commitments, streaming, watching a stream, even if it's someone they really, really like, is probably way down on the list of their priorities, right?
Sure.
So when I turn on the live button and no one's there, it's like, where are you people? And it's like, we're at work, dumbass. We're at school. We're doing our lives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely managing expectations about how many people are going to show up. So,
Yeah.
and that's where I think I'm like a little bit of a narcissist because it's like I'm live. People should come watch me.
Mm.
And I have to remind myself, no, dummy, they got stuff to do. They have lives of their own. They're not going to drop everything just to come watch you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that's something that I've wrestled with. So,
Totally. I think it's completely natural to want people to be there, and at the same
right,
time, it's really important to recognize that just because they're not there doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't worth doing or that it's not being done well,
right, right.
and that's hard. That's hard to grapple with, I think. Um,
Yeah, it's just trying to stay humble and
yeah.
and um, just recognizing that people have just as much, if not more, of a complex life than you do.
Mm,
And that's kind of a profound thought when you think about it, because it's like, I have my life and my, goings on, but other people have just as much complex lives as I do.
yeah.
And it's like, but I have time to do something, so why don't you? So it's trying to remember that people are people. People are more than just their screen names, right? There's a person on the other side of that screen name, right? And they
Absolutely.
have a life.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, I think that, we never know what's going on in someone else's life. And at the same time, I think to give yourself credit, like your life is complex too, right? So this idea of humility versus being hard on yourself, I think that, like, I keep talking about these dichotomies, but it's something that I think we all struggle with, and I think that for you and many other people that stream or just exist. I think this idea of like, how do I stay humble without beating myself up? And how do I
Right.
be confident without being arrogant, right? And so to me, if you're thinking this deeply about it, the way that you're thinking about it, you're doing okay. I think that arrogant people probably don't think about it. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Narcissistic people probably aren't reflecting on it the way that you're reflecting on it.
Like I said, I have a lot of self confidence issues, so
Sure,
any confidence is I think of as arrogance or narcissistic.
sure.
So
Does that
I
transmit
thank you for
to?
saying that.
Yeah, of course.
So that makes sense. So yeah. So
I was gonna say, does that thought transmit to other people? Like, if other people say, you know what, like I think I'm pretty good at this. I have a following. Like, if people say that or act that way, does that look like arrogance to you?
it depends on the person and
Okay,
how it's delivered.
sure. Yeah.
Um, if someone is like, I'm very thankful about the following, yada yada, that kind of thing, is one thing. But what bugs me about some streamers, I'm not going to
Mm.
name any names, of course, but when someone
Drag
follows them,
them.
they
I'm just
either,
kidding.
yeah, they, no,
I'm kidding.
I
I'm
don't,
kidding.
I'm fine with trouble, but not that much trouble.
Don't do it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, I when someone follows like a larger streamer, they don't say thank you or they don't
Mm,
acknowledge the follow, and it's like this is someone who is like likes your stuff enough to want to come back. You
yeah,
should at the very least say, "Hey, thank you, viewer X, for the follow." Thanks for liking my stream.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean that level that to me is arrogance. That to me is follow me because I'm fill in the blank name, right?
yeah,
Um, that to me is something I hope I never get to.
yeah.
I always want to acknowledge the people and thank the people that have taken the time to hit that follow button. So,
Absolutely.
if you have followed me, thank you. I appreciate all your support, and I
Yeah.
love each and every one of you. And I'll do puppet
Aw.
shows for you whenever you want.
Aw,
I have
jeez.
I have puppet shows. I have puppets that I've never even shown on stream
Oh
before.
yeah? How did the puppet
Yeah.
thing start for you? Did you like puppets like
Uh
outside of streaming, or was that specifically a stream
here
thing?
that was my wife's doing. Mrs.
Ah.
Goon did this.
Okay.
She works in a retail store that is focused on pop culture.
Ah.
And this puppet, Shark, they call him Sharky,
Mm-hmm.
was behind the counter one day and they've been playing with it at the store during downtime and stuff. And the store managers just handed it to her and said, "Please take this home so people stop playing with it."
Mm-hmm.
So it ended up here at the house. And so I was like playing with it with her, off stream one day and we were making funny noises and then she goes, "You should do puppets on your stream."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "I should do puppets on the stream, like a channel point reward." And then I went on Amazon and bought a bunch of hand puppets
How
to
fun.
to show on stream.
Love it.
So I have a I have a fourth one somewhere, but I don't know where it went.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how it started. It was just a conversation with Mrs. Goon, and then all of a sudden, so.
Yeah. Well, and we were talking
But
about.
it was very organic. So
I love that. Well, and I was going to say we were talking a little bit before we actually went live about like being a World of Warcraft streamer and being a WoW streamer and kind of dipping your toes into
mhm.
other things. So like bringing puppets into the fold. And I want to talk about your podcast. So you have a podcast called the Midnight Stream to
Mhm.
Nowhere, right? And
Yep.
that's on Saturday nights, usually on your Twitch channel. How did that start?
hmm Um, I was wanting to stream something around midnight one Saturday night, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to stream WoW. And I think this was actually, no, this was after Classic had launched because I'd already started, of course. And so Shadowlands had just launched, and the new starting zone, Exile's Reach, was out, and I was like, I'm gonna stream Exile's Reach because I've never played it before and everything, and so I'm gonna call this the Midnight Stream to Nowhere, and it was just something that I threw out. I got a pop up on my screen. Help me get rid of this thing. Go away, Norton. And sorry.
You're good.
So I streamed the original episode 0 of the Midnight Stream to Nowhere is Exile's Reach, and I was watching a little bit of it last night, this morning, or whatever, and I was laughing at some of the things I was saying because it was just like, how did I get away with this? And then Kessidreth and I were talking one day on Discord, and we're like, we should, do a show on Twitch or something about RPGs and gaming. And, we've got a lot of game knowledge between us, and we can do something about science because he's a physicist and everything. And so then I was like, well, I've got this show I was planning to do, just do silly games at midnight called the Midnight Stream to Nowhere. So let's just turn that into a podcast. And that's what we did. And so that's how it got started. And then it was originally at midnight on Saturday nights. And so, but then we were like getting no viewers at all. And so we're like, let's move it to like 9 p.m. And so we
Hmm.
eventually moved it to 9 p.m. on Saturday nights. And it we get a lot more viewers. So
It's 9 p.m. EST, just so people.
yes, Eastern
Okay,
time.
nice. So that way people know 9 p.m. Saturday nights. And so it's funny to me. I didn't realize. Well, I have a few different questions. First of all, how do you know Kessidreth? How did you all get to know each other?
We met at a comic book store in a local town here
Okay.
back in 1993.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he was the best man at my wedding,
Oh.
and his wife was my wife's maid of honor.
Okay.
And so we've been friends for many, many years, and I regret every moment of it. No, I'm just kidding. Um,
Love that.
yeah, he's a long term friend, and I count him amongst my best friends in life.
Yeah.
Jay and Silent Bob say hetero life mate. So I kind of think of him as a hetero life mate.
Absolutely. We love
So
a long-term friendship. We really
yeah.
do. That's so cool. There's something so special about that. And I'm curious too, like what is it like creating content with someone that you have that much history with, you know?
It's fun because I can read his facial expressions and he can read mine. He
Sure.
knows when I'm like, that kind of thing. And it's in a lot of ways, friendships that long are just our relationships, right? You
Yeah.
learn each other's mannerisms and that kind of thing and whatnot. And it's almost like, it's going to sound weird to say, but it's almost like being in a marriage without the love part of it, right? The
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, right? It's just that knowing each other for so long, right?
Yeah.
And uh, I was there, like I said, I was there when his kids were born, and uh, now his daughter has 2 kids, and so he's a grandpa now. So I just, seeing his family grow, seeing his accomplishments and his, failures and stuff, and being there for him has been one of the best honors of my life, and trying to help him through tough times. And we talk about, all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
he's my sounding board when I want to do campaigns, and I'd like to think that I'm his sounding board, and that kind of thing. We've collaborated since we met,
Yeah.
and it was like when we met, it was just like, you and I are going to be friends for a very long time.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
we have been. So
Yeah. Well, Fenario is bringing up a term that I've never heard, but it totally makes sense to me. Have you heard of the concept of queer platonic relationships?
I have not heard it put that way. No.
Yeah.
Kesidrith, I want to do say is not in the queer community.
Yeah.
I am in the queer community, but he is not. So
Yeah.
it, but he is a staunch ally.
Yeah.
So
So it might not be quite fitting for you.
Right.
But like
Just
me, I was gonna say, me and my friend T Miller, who is one of my mods and hangs out in chat all the time.
I
We're
like team.
we're platonic soulmates, right? So you know, I get it. You have these kind of like ride or die friends that truly you do have an intimate relationship with without the romantic part, right? So that makes sense. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Um. Yeah. That does make sense. Like I said, hetero life mate. You
Yeah,
know.
use
So,
the Jane Bob turn. I like it. I like
yeah.
it. Yeah.
So.
Um, Going back to the podcast just for a second. So it's fascinating to me because if you've ever watched the podcast, it's fascinating that it started with let's play silly games to now you all really get into some like philosophical kind of like very interesting deep conversations. How did that kind of evolution happen? Because those are playing silly games versus that, they're so different, right?
Right. Um. a, a thirst and a need for content because we got to the point with the gaming stuff that we're kind of running out of broad topics to cover as far as what we're covering for role playing games like how to be a better GM, how to handle dragons, how to handle vampires. Both of those were topics on two different shows.
Mm-hmm.
um, we talked about uh, you know past adventures and if you're a tabletop role player when you join a group the first thing you do is I've done all these amazing stories that you have, right? And so we talked a little bit about those. We talked about our greatest blunders and that sort of thing. And so we got to the point where we realized we're kind of running out of topics for tabletop stuff. We have a few more in the can, but we're coming to the end of that sort of thing. And so that's when we started mixing in talking about geology and physics and astronomy and that kind of thing to have content, right?
Yeah.
And he is a scientist, very well educated. um, I'll let him type out in the chat if he wants to reveal his education level. But I do not have an advanced degree in any science. I have
Mm-hmm.
a very strong interest in science and I know a lot of the concepts, but I'm not a formally educated scientist, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way he is. Um, so I'm kind of dependent on him to provide that content, right? So it sort of evolved to, what can we talk about this week?
Yeah.
And then so we started talking about like last night was morals and ethics, and so we just pick a topic and just sort of let's talk about this. And there was a one of our past episodes was actually inspired by your podcast, um, your Wikipedia with me podcast.
Yeah.
You were talking whenever you did that. Uh, I would always present a female scientist,
Yes.
right? And so I thought it was very important to discuss women in the sciences and
Absolutely.
STEM and so forth. So we did a whole episode on uh, women in science, and we talked about Marie Curie. We talked about several other uh, uh, famous women of science, and that was inspired by your Wikipedia with me for that. So thank you for that.
Oh my God,
So
my pleasure. We need to bring Wikipedia with me back at some point. It's one of those things that like it's a lot of energy. It's a lot to like read and kind of navigate different Wikipedia articles for that length of time.
right,
So I
yeah,
really loved it. I just need to find a way to do it that's a little bit more sustainable for me because I would be just exhausted after those streams. Just like mentally like done for the day.
when you first introduced those, I was like, why didn't I think of that?
You know,
So,
sometimes the simplest ideas, because really, for anyone that doesn't know, all it was, hey, let's read Wikipedia articles together. So that's what the stream was people would give me different topics, different people to look up, and we would read about them. So sometimes, really, like, this is a lesson that I've learned through streaming. The simplest ideas are sometimes the best ideas, and just run with it. And something that Julie Go Live said last week, she was our guest. She was saying, one of the beautiful things about Twitch that you really have to lean into is go with your impulse. If you have an impulse of an idea to do something, just do it. And I really like that. So Wikipedia was one of those that just kind of came to me and I was like, yeah, let's do it, you know?
Yeah, I really wish I had thought of that. It's a great idea. It's a wonderful idea, and I'm looking forward to the next episode. So
Yeah, we'll
whenever
make
you
it
get to it.
happen for sure. When Fenaria just wants to clear something up, she says, to be clear, I was trying to say queer platonic relationships are similar in depth to your level of friendship, not trying to label your friendship itself. That makes sense.
Right.
So she doesn't want to ascribe labels to anyone or anything.
Right, I understand. I just wanted to
Yeah.
be clear that because I don't want to speak for Kessidrith.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
and I don't want him to be labeled as something he's not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Thanks, Fenaria. Well, and thank you for educating us on that because it's
Indeed,
a
yeah.
term I never knew about, and so I'm excited to learn more
Yeah.
about queer platonic relationships.
Yeah, that's a term I hadn't heard either. So thank you
Yeah.
for that, Fenaria.
Yeah.
I like Fenaria. She's just a wonderful
I
human
love Fenaria. Fenaria is the best. She's a good one. We're gonna have Fenaria on the podcast at some point, for sure.
I'm stepping aside. Bring her on now.
No. Oh, I love it. Talking about being queer, and we talked a little bit about mental health and things like how do those aspects of your identity or other aspects of your kind of culture or background come into your streaming life? How do they manifest in your streams?
I just decided to be a little bit more honest about who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have always had attraction to anyone who is attracted, to me. So
Yeah.
it never really bothered me what configuration their genitals happened to be in or what their presentation was or anything like that. It's just if I find you attractive, I'm going to find you attractive.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not something I can really control, right?
Yeah.
So I've explored that aspect of myself, and I found I like it, and I'm not going to change it. So
Yeah.
I don't care what the laws are or what they make illegal. I'm going to be me, and if they don't like it, they can, put me in jail. So,
Yeah.
but I'm going to go kicking and screaming and take a few of them with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Well, and we talked a little bit earlier about how you, not to dox you, but I hope it's okay to say you live in the South of the United States. And so historically and currently the South is very intolerant. And that's probably a not even a harsh enough word, but not tolerant at all of queer people.
right.
And so what has your experience been like being queer kind of outside of Twitch versus inside of Twitch and with streaming?
With streaming, you're free to be who you are, right? There's only so much that someone can do to you to harm you. I mean, they could do a lot, of course, but they're not going to. I mean, if they throw a brick at me, all they're going to do is break their monitor, right? It's not going to hit me, right? Outside of Twitch, I'm not shy about it, but I'm not open about it either. The people in my life know.
Right.
The people that need to know. The people that don't need to know don't need to know. I don't. It's not like I put it on a job application or anything like that. The people on my Facebook know, and I keep my personal Facebook, personal, right? Come here, baby girl.
Oh, we have a cat sighting, which I always
Yes.
love.
This is Dahlia. Hey,
Oh,
Dada.
hi, Dahlia.
She's a sweet baby.
Oh,
I don't know if you can hear.
purr ASMR. I feel so blessed.
We'll see how long she stays, because sometimes
Uh-huh.
she'll sit here for a while, and so other times she's like, "All right, I'm getting out of here. Bye."
I fully understand. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, the people that need to know about my queerness know about my queerness. The people that don't need to know don't need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's really wonderful that a place like Twitch has provided a space where we can, be queer in a way that feels safe and feels comfortable. And because I think for me, I've had a similar experience where I can really like live it out loud on Twitch. And,
Right.
I'm out, but it's also not something I necessarily like. I don't know if that's
Right.
true. Maybe I do advertise it, but I'm also in Colorado and it's a much more liberal state. It's much more safe for me to be very out about my queerness, So yeah.
I've looked into jobs in Colorado
Yeah.
and the cost of living and so forth because I don't want to stay in the South much
Mm,
longer. You know, my wife doesn't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I've looked at North Dakota, which is actually a red state, but
yeah.
that's, I know people in North Dakota. So I would have a bit of a support network, right?
Yeah.
I've looked in more liberal states. I can't go as far as California, even though that's where I'm from. I'm from
Mm,
California originally. The cost of living in California is just too
yeah.
high for me.
Yeah.
So
Totally. Totally.
yeah, it's a pretty.
What are some, takeaways or kind of first impressions that you hope people have when they come to your stream?
Um, I hope they just like the content. I hope they want to stick around long enough to give me a fair shake.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I go into a stream for the first time, new content creator that I've never seen before, I don't immediately follow because I don't know if I'm going to like them. I may like the content, like a hardcore streamer, for example, right? We're both part of the hardcore community. Um, I will go into a new hardcore stream. I'll watch for at least an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I want to listen to how they talk, what they say, um, the interaction with their chat, and that kind of thing before I will commit to a follow. And follows are just follows, right? I mean, there's no obligation to it. It's just not really, right? Not like subscribing is a
Sure.
monetary obligation,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it does show support. And but if that person after they follow says something uh, not so not so nice or against my people, then that shows that I support those statements. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And so then I have to go through the trouble of unfollowing them and whatever.
Yeah.
So I just listen to them for a while, and if during that time they seem pretty cool, I like the vibe, I like the interaction with the chat, then that's when I throw the follow, and I hope that people will do the same for me.
Yeah.
Um, that they will consider what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, how I present myself, and the content itself, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
And I hope that I present all of that stuff well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I have follower only chat on, and I did that pretty early on in streaming, and people people often remind me and tell me, that's kind of the kiss of death if you want to grow. But to me, it's very much motivated by what you're talking about, where it's like, no, I want people to like take a moment to make sure this is a space for them.
right,
And kind of part of it for me too is to protect against trolls, where it's like I want an extra barrier, an extra step for you to take if you do want to come in here and spread any kind of hatred or bigotry, right?
hmm
So I'm with you. I think that there's something very valuable and important about being like, let me wait, let me see if this is someone not only whose content I want to consume, but also if this is someone that I can stand behind and support and feel comfortable supporting, you know?
right, yeah. Um, in my about section, I specifically listed as a safe space for the LGBT community
Mm-hmm.
and people, you know, what is it, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color. Um, it's not somewhere that I won't put up with kink shaming or fat shaming or anything like that. It's a safe space with everything that implies.
Mm-hmm.
So people of any type can come in and be safe, and that's the kind of space that I want to be in. So that's the kind of space I try to provide.
Totally. Yeah.
um, and I'm fairly stringent about that kind of thing. I had a gentleman come in and say, "Well, what about the?" And he listed out the entire. All right, there you go. Listed out the entire ABCs, right? And he's like, "What about all these people?" And I'm like, "Well, first of all, we don't make fun of the LGBT community here,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, if that's what you want to do, then maybe this isn't the stream for you."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, "That's fair." And then he was quiet, so I figured that was the last bit of it, right? He didn't come back or whatever. And then he was like, "You know what? I was just trolling, and I'm sorry if I offended. Here's a follow, and here's a prime."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Okay, well, thank you. You're welcome back anytime, as long as you're respectful."
Yeah.
And he never came back, but he subscribed for a month. So
Yeah. That's very
um,
cool. Well, and how do you determine between like someone who's just kind of trolling or kind of pushing the limits versus someone who is outright being hateful or being a bigot? Like how do you handle that, I guess?
basically the way I just described.
Yeah.
I just tell them maybe this isn't the stream for you, man.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
You know, and they get one warning, and once they exhaust that warning, it's a ban.
Yeah.
Now, if someone comes in and says something like a slur, racial slur, or an anti-gay slur, that's immediate ban, no questions asked,
Yeah.
no tolerance, no regrets, no nothing. You're
Totally.
gone.
Yeah.
So, but if someone just kind of comes in and like pushes the limits, like we had a guy come in last night and was like, "I eat babies," because someone had brought up, I don't know if it was me or somebody else brought up cannibalism. Is cannibalism
Oh,
moral and that kind of thing.
interesting.
And so this guy came in, I eat babies and stuff, and we're like, okay, I just kind of chuckled, but I didn't acknowledge him. And then he said something else, and then he was gone. It's so don't feed the trolls, that
Yeah,
kind of
don't feed
thing.
the trolls is huge.
So
Like I remember someone at some point in my life said like don't engage with bigots and I was like, "Oh, that's great. Like perfect." Like there's just because there's a difference to me between like this is a teachable moment or a conversation where we can learn and grow versus this is a person that's just trying to kind of get some sort of shock value attention.
right, yeah, and but knowing the difference is kind of hard.
Yes.
I mean, unless they just spell it out, I am a bigot. I say this or whatever,
Like some people
or
make it obvious, but I struggle
right,
with that all the time on my stream of like do I need to give people more of a chance? Do I need to entertain this conversation? And especially when it comes to my aspects of identity where I have privilege, it's like is it my responsibility to do this emotional labor in this moment?
right, yeah, and a lot of these people want you to do that emotional labor because that it's exhausting
Yeah.
at times, and it wears you down. And that's what they're really after is they want to wear you down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And exactly, Kessler. There's some conversations that you just don't engage with,
Sure.
and knowing the difference has been kind of tough to
Yeah.
parse. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, um, how I handle it is on a case by case basis. You know,
Yeah.
like the guy last night talking about cannibalism. I'm going to ignore that because it's a distraction.
Yeah. Sure.
And as you get more experienced as a streamer, I think you pick it up more as to what is a distraction and what is not a distraction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the conversations to handle. So I want to pause real fast and just say exclamation point coffee in the chat for a code 20% off on Javi. Support Abbers and buy some really good coffee.
Thank
So
you.
you're
That's
very
very
welcome.
sweet. Yeah,
You're
yeah. Have
very
you
welcome.
have you been enjoying your Javi?
My
Thanks,
wife
Beanor.
drinks it more than I do,
Mm-hmm.
but she likes it and she drinks it every morning. So she likes it
Oh,
better cold, I think, the iced coffee.
that's how I
So
feel too. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's very sweet. I very
you're
much
welcome.
appreciate it. And just
You're
thank you.
welcome.
Thank you for your support in general. It means a lot. Claire
What's
Cares
up,
is
Kitty?
enjoying it in this very moment. Thanks, Claire Cares.
What? What about a wife? I said you enjoy the jobby. Okay. She's like, oh yeah.
Hi, Wonder Wife.
Aber says, hello, Wonder Wife.
No, I like that one better.
You like that one better than Mrs. Goon? Okay.
Okay, Wonder Wife it is. Yeah.
Wonder Wife it is.
Got
Yes.
it. Love that.
Come on, baby.
We were talking a little bit earlier about kind of numbers and hold on, puppy alert. Here's a doggo.
This is Mabel. She's a
Mabel.
Papillon Chihuahua mix.
Oh,
And
Mabel.
she's just the cutest little thing. She likes to snuggle. She likes it when I do this. I don't know if she'll do it. Give me kisses. No kisses. Okay.
Oh,
She's a sweetie.
we've been blessed with a cat sighting and a dog sighting. I love that.
All right, go back on the bed.
See, anyone who only enjoys the audio portion of this podcast, you're gonna miss out on those magical
That's
moments,
right. That's right. Come look at the dogs and cats.
right?
I have another
Um,
cat around here somewhere, but I don't think she's going to come over. So
yeah,
anyway, go ahead.
fair. We'll see. I was gonna say mine might make a sighting. She also, she, I was curling my hair this morning, and she jumped up on the counter, and I think burnt her paw a little bit because she was out of there, and I felt so bad. I think she's okay. I checked her out. But I think she has just gone into her corner to lick her wounds. Poor baby. So yeah, poor Bonnie. I know.
Bonnie is such a sweetheart.
She is a sweetheart. She's such a goober. But yeah, let's get back into the streaming stuff a little bit.
Okay.
I know
Sorry.
we talked. No, you have nothing to apologize for. Please.
This happens on the midnight stream to nowhere too. We'll start with like a deep conversation of morals and ethics. And I think we ended up talking about, I don't even know, last night.
Yeah.
It's just the conversation just goes off on tangents.
I think you just got to go with that sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, because the tangents, I think, and this is true in streaming too, like you kind of have to just be flexible and go with where the stream goes sometimes.
Right.
Well, and actually, so a different question that I was going to go with, but yeah, so along those lines, like, when do you decide, or what kind of streams do you decide, like, no, I have kind of an intention here and I want to go here and kind of control it, versus having that flexibility to be like, yeah, let's go down this hole. Why not?
I have very little control when it comes to staying on topic.
Okay.
When it comes to the midnight stream to nowhere, because we go in such tangents, and all the stuff we talk about is related in some way, but there are times, especially when I have another guest on, like last night with Winky, I just wanted to let the conversation flow, right? And and kind of just sit back and listen to what Kessidrith and Winky were saying and interject when I needed to.
Yeah.
Um, but I think and I need to talk about it. I may add a permanent third person on the show to sort of have a panel going, because those kinds of conversations um, are much more interesting to me. So we get more feedback and that kind of thing. Until we get more feedback from the chat and so forth, having more voices is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So I just like letting conversations flow, and to wherever they go is wherever they go, and that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And is that the same when you're streaming just by yourself and you're playing World of Warcraft, for example?
Yeah, a lot of my streams are stream of conscious.
Yeah.
As far as that's concerned, I try to stay focused on what I'm doing in the moment, just paying attention. But the things I talk about, I'll just start randomly talking sometimes, and I'll end up talking about like things that happened to my dad back in the 60s or whatever, versus and I'm sitting here playing a video game from 2004,
Yeah.
in 2023, so it just whatever comes out, and that's on the internet forever, that kind of thing. So
That's interesting. The kind of, are you wary of the consequence of this kind of idea of like what's on the internet is on the internet forever with regard to streaming?
in some cases, yeah. So I try to kind of edit those kinds of things, but at the same time, I'm like, it's going to get out. It's going to get out,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I might as well get ahead of it and control it when it's out, At the same time, am I gonna like publish my street address? No,
No, of course
things
not.
like that. Yeah,
Please don't.
right. But my views is most of the stuff about me is probably out there anyway, because I'm known as WonderGoon. I shouldn't say I'm known as WonderGoon. I use the word or the name WonderGoon all over the internet, right? So if there's a when I sign in, it's nickname WonderGoon, so it's there. It's so if you do a Google search, you may even be able to find my real name. I don't even know.
Interesting.
So Please don't do that, but it's there, you know.
Please don't Google me.
Please don't Google me. No.
That's funny.
So,
What kind of people do tend to find your stream specifically?
the best people.
Yeah.
Um, I like to think that my brand of weird attracts my brand of weird, you
Hmm.
know. So I think tabletop role players will come in. Members of the hardcore community, of course, will come in, which I'm blessed to know everybody in that community. Well, not everybody, but you know, the majority.
Sure.
Um, uh, People like that. Friends will show up. Classic Daddy is a longtime friend. He comes into the chat. Hello, Tabitha. You want to be on stream? No. Okay, bye. Um, Casadrith, of course, will be there. So friends, close friends come in, and then an extended circle of strong acquaintances slash friends from the
Hmm.
hardcore community, you know. But those are the kind of people I like to think that like I said, my brand of weird attracts my brand of weird, you
Yeah.
know. So
What is your brand of weird? Just this.
just
Yep.
this,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think I try to have a good sense of humor. I try very hard to be clever, and I think that alone is amusing when I, you know, because I'm trying so hard. I'm like a try hard clever person, you
Yeah.
know. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm not someone who takes themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
Um I have a self-depreciating sense of humor. So I'm like, "Have you seen my show?" You know, because of all the scuff or whatever, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that adds a sense of charm to it. At least I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I mean, people laugh when I say things like that, but I don't. I don't know if they're really enjoying it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So um, I just try to be kind of self-depreciating and humble. I do that to be humble. You
Yeah.
know, 'cause going back to our conversation about arrogance versus, you know, confidence, right? I
Yeah.
don't want to get too confident because I might end up being arrogant.
Mm.
And arrogance is just so unattractive. It's I the quickest way to get me to be not interested in someone is for them to be arrogant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't stand that kind of personality, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't want anything to do. I certainly don't want to put that out there. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
That makes sense. Yeah. What kind of streams do you enjoy? What kind of streamers inspire you, or content do you seek out for yourself?
I like honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like frank discussions, and I like deep philosophical discussions. Um, and I like learning something.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, all the hallmarks of why I do the show I do, and you know, because I learn so much when Kesseltrith is talking about science and stuff, and um, that to me is a good thing. You know, I think education is very important, and we need more of it in this country. Lots more of it in this country, and you know, I enjoy content that is educational, and I enjoy content that is fun.
Yeah.
A good witty conversation and with witty repartee is always a good thing. I enjoy people who can kind of laugh at themselves without and laugh at other people without being malicious about it.
Sure.
Um, so intelligent conversation. So that's what I enjoy. So
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
intelligent content. So one of the reasons why I like your stream so much because
Hey.
uh, they're 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 goofy at times, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a we're gonna have fun kind of way. They're
Uh-huh.
fun and they're goofy and they're but at the same time, I learn something a lot of the times that I'm in your streams because it's just good solid content, you know. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on your show. I'm saying that because I really believe you have excellent content
Thank
and
you.
you're actually one of the people that is inspiring me to be a better streamer. So I
Oh,
count you, Winky, Cargos, um, Sith HC. I mean, all these people kind of, I take a little bit from each one and try to be a better content creator, you know? So,
that's
um,
really that's really sweet. That means a lot. Thank you for that. I
you're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. I'm lying, Chad. No, I'm just kidding.
How dare you?
Rude.
So rude. Um, with streaming, we were kind of talking about like what it feels like to stream to no one and the kind of expectation of having people there. What is your relationship to the algorithm and the kind of the numbers aspect of streaming?
I try not to let it get me down when the numbers are low,
Yeah,
because the numbers are not a reflection of my quality of skill or my quality of content. It's just like I say, people are busy. People have complex lives. People have other things to do.
sure.
So I have to keep that in mind. And so if I get two people in my stream for a 4 hour stream, I'm happy the two people showed up. You know,
Yeah,
I'm happy that someone was watching. Um, I try to keep that as and think of that as a W. Every viewer is a W, even if it's only one.
yeah,
You know, would I like to have 50 people in my chat every time? Yes and no, because I have this sort of fear of if I get too big, I'm not going to be able to um, interact as much with the people that do talk. You know,
sure.
so I I fear losing that personal connection in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
So a little bit more growth would be fantastic, but not too much.
sure, sure.
So I don't know if I could be like Grace for Days with 1,000 people in my chat, or Amaranth with 15,000 people in my chat. That
Right.
would, because I there's no personal connection with the chat at that point. It's just text and emotes, and just it's going by so fast you can't read anything.
Yeah,
You lose that personal connection, right?
yeah,
So I actually in a way don't mind being a small streamer, because I can have that personal connection, and
yeah,
I can grow that relationship with people.
yeah.
And that to me I think is far more important than even being a partner. I have no illusions that I will ever be a partner on Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying it. I'm not on the partner grind. I like personal interaction with people.
Yeah.
um, this is my social life. um, People in person are you. I don't, ugh, stay over there. If I could carry around a cattle prod and people get within 10 feet of me, I could hit them with the cattle prod. I probably would,
Yeah.
you know. But here on Twitch, yeah, come on, come in the chat, let's talk. But not
Yeah.
too many of you.
Right. Can you quantify it? Do you have like in your mind a number of like average viewers where it's like that's the threshold? I wouldn't want it to get above that. And it's
my
okay if
first
not. I was just curious.
my first thought when you asked me that was 20,
Okay.
but I think it also depends on if that many people are active in the chat,
Yeah,
right?
maybe instead of average viewer, like how many people in chat maybe is a better question.
Right. Um, I wouldn't mind having 500 viewers if only about 10 of them were talking, you
Fair.
know.
Yeah.
So,
that
uh,
makes sense.
so yeah, that about about somewhere between 10 to 15 to 20, somewhere in that
Yeah.
range of
Okay.
actual active chatters would be glorious, I think.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I think my ADHD would force me to not be able to focus too well.
Yeah.
So,
That's hard.
but I've I've had about 10 or 11 people in my chat talking at once, and I could keep up with it. But it was a stretch. So
Yeah.
maybe closer to 15 would be about my limit. So,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. Well, I've only had it happen once, so we'll see. Maybe in
Yeah.
the future it'll happen again. Hint, hint. So
Go follow. The
go
hint
follow.
the hint was for you all to go follow Goon. Go do it though,
That's
for
right.
real. Go do it. It just takes a simple click of the button, guys.
That's right. That's right.
But
Follow me
yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's, I think what you're talking about speaks to this idea of kind of motivation for streaming. And so, if your primary motivation for streaming is the social aspect of that, you're
Mhm.
right. After a certain number, and I don't, maybe that number is different for everyone. I don't know what that number is, but this kind of 10 to 15 to 20 ish range that you're talking about, like, that does change streaming, I think, for you. Kind of brings me back to something that you said earlier, where it's like there are streamers that are so big that they may not be able to say thank you for the follow. They may not be able to like pull focus for that because there's so many people following or chatting or subscribing or whatever. And so it's interesting
Mhm.
too, like it changes, I think, maybe your ability to show that gratitude the way that someone who has fewer viewers or chatters is able to.
Right. Yeah. Too much. The old saying, too much of anything is bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not saying having too many chatters is bad, but having too many chatters, uh, especially if they're all active at once,
Sure.
and that sometimes I marvel at people who can keep up with that level of chat. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't have the spoons to do that,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm paying attention to the game, I'm paying attention to the chat, and then at the same time, I'm listening for things going on in my house. Because if my mother falls down, she's, like I said, she's in her 70s, and I'm her primary caregiver. I have to stop what I'm doing and go help her. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Sure.
And that takes priority. So I have to listen for her issues and so forth. And then I have to, I'm listening for the phone, I'm listening to the pets to see, if one of them is having a problem, so all that signal wears on me.
Yeah.
So um, I have trouble processing that much input.
That makes sense.
So, uh,
Totally.
so that I am a smaller streamer with less visual input from the chat is perfectly fine for with me at the moment. So
Yeah.
maybe later as my meds improve and my situation improves, I can handle more, but we'll
Mm-hmm.
see. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
that's not,
definitely.
I would love to push that limit. I'm not saying don't come chat or anything. I'm just saying, if I don't get to your chat, your comment, don't be upset.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's very realistic. And I think it goes back to something we said earlier. People have complex lives. Streamers have complex lives just like anyone
mhm.
else. And so, there are days where you need to be a human and take care of things in your real life, right?
Human. Yeah.
You, human. What is that line for you in terms of like kind of like stream persona and the way you present yourself on stream versus your private life self, or kind of your who you are outside of stream?
I think my they're very close,
Mm-hmm.
but not to say what you see is what you get kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
My private life is I'm much more like if we were sitting and having this conversation in a cafe somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would be a lot less engaging,
Yeah.
right? You would be doing most of the talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be going, yeah, yep,
Interesting.
right, right, yeah, I get that, that kind of thing, right? But with being on camera and learning to be more extroverted for the, and I hate to say it this way, but for the performance of it
Yeah.
is uh is where it I amp that part up. I put that face forward, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm much more gregarious, is that the word?
Yeah.
Outgoing on stream than I am in my personal private life. So
That makes sense. Yeah.
um my favorite activity is laying down, and my second favorite activity is sitting down. And my third favorite activity is reading. So reading is a solitary activity, and so I'm used to just sitting or laying and reading most of the
Yeah.
time. And so to sit here and actually speak with someone in real time on camera in front of thousands of people,
Yeah.
potentially is kind of off-putting, but at the same time it's liberating. And so I tend to lean into that liberation to sort of, yes, world, this is me
Yeah.
mostly,
Yeah.
so a little bit of a mask, but um, a little bit of a performance, but not too much of a performance.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think sometimes when we talk about performing or this word performance, there's this kind of implication of inauthenticity, like of
right.
not being authentic. But I don't necessarily think that's true, and I think some of the best performances come from a very authentic place.
Hmm.
So, it is performing. I think performing is when you do put yourself out there for others to see, and especially when you're creating content to entertain people, that is performing, right?
Hmm.
I think there's a difference between being a performer and performing something versus being performative. I think like when we use performative, then it's this idea of like I'm putting on an act for some sort of motivation or
Right.
agenda. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's so boiling it down, my stream persona is me plus about 20% more effort.
Okay.
uh
Yeah.
if I had to put a number on it, 25% more effort to be normal, whatever normal is, socially functional adult person. So
Yeah.
all that in quotation marks. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, Kezadra, some of us have to put on an act just to talk to people, and that's part of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um, it that's the performance of it.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
hope I'm emulating a social human well enough that people are liking me.
totally. Well, you used
So
this word mask earlier, right? Like masking. And that's very real, especially if you're a neurodivergent person. You mentioned having ADHD earlier. And being queer in the South, like there's all these different kind of aspects of who you are that I think very realistically, in order to survive in the world as it is, you have to mask, right? So I think, Kessler, thinking you make a really good point is that, yeah, I think for many of us, you have to put on an act, you have to put on a mask in order to interact with others. Definitely. And
yeah,
so I love to hear that streaming, while there is an element of that for you, it's also very liberating and allows you to take off that mask to a certain extent. Like it sounds like
right.
it's kind of like a double-edged sword that way. Does that feel correct for you?
Yes, I agree with that. It, it can be tough, but at the same time it can feel like I've accomplished something. I've got a W when I hit the end stream button after a 2 hour, 3 hour stream, and I've had some interaction with people. I feel, in a way, I'm like super tired because I've had that interaction, but at the same time I'm like, I'm part of society now,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I've accomplished that. And then 10 minutes later I'm like, Jesus Christ, leave me alone.
yeah.
So
Totally. Yeah. Because I think we do need human connection on some level. And
mhm.
I think it's very real for many of us that that is a lot of sensory stimuli that is,
Yes, yes,
exhausting.
and yeah, it is exhausting, and streaming provides that because, like I
Hmm.
said, I don't leave the house very often, so I don't get that in person stimuli. I see my wife every day, I see my mother every day, and that's and her boyfriend. So it's like that's the end of the list. I don't talk to my neighbors, I don't see them on the street,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So my social interaction is this right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna go to sleep after I get off off stream today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably. So actually, I have a D&D game that's going to be going on, so I'm going to be in the D&D game.
Oh,
So
nice. Well, I hope you get some time to relax in between these two things if that's what you need to do.
yeah,
Yeah, because that's important.
true
Um,
enough.
Chat, we're going to go to you in just a minute here and get some questions for you. So if you have any questions for WonderGoon, go ahead and type them in the chat, and I'd love to hear from you all in terms of what you'd like to know about WonderGoon and his experience.
Ask me anything.
AMA time. Uh, Goon, what are some of your activities or passions outside of streaming? I know you mentioned writing and reading. Are there other passions or hobbies that you have?
Um, Creation.
Yeah.
Uh, Specifically, I mean, writing novels is one thing. Content creation for gaming materials and the act itself of I am going to take a blank piece of paper and create a world on it, you know, with my little colored pencils and that kind of thing. So the act of creation, whether it's that or whether it's writing or whether it's content creation on YouTube or whatever, that is definitely a hobby. Um, I like, well, I don't like it, but I need to do it more often. Is walking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm trying to get into the habit of doing that and considering that a quote unquote hobby
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
force me to do it a little bit more. I collect board games. I'm very much a gamer
Yeah.
of many different things. So, um, but I like to watch baseball. Um, I'm trash at playing it. At one point, I was like, I'm gonna be a pitcher for the Braves or whatever, or the Angels and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I grew up and experienced life and decided that wasn't for me. So yeah, so just collecting things. But gaming is a very central. Now that I think about, you asked me what are my hobbies. Gaming. That's
Yeah.
pretty much
Yeah.
that pretty much is the beginning and the ending of my hobbies. So
Yeah.
um, I hope I answered your question at least at some
Absolutely.
point.
Yeah.
So,
So it sounds like, I mean, video games, obviously, TTRPGs you've talked about, board
mhm.
games, right? And then sports too. I mean, I think that yeah, there's something about having a kind of gamer brain and enjoying games. I don't know, this might be an odd question, but I'm curious, like, how do you define what a game is? Like what is a game to you?
um, in my more cynical moments, I borrow a Klingon phrase called "insklil." Let me see if I can pronounce it correctly. Um, Insklil I think is how you pronounce it, or something to that effect. Anyway, it translates as the game with life pieces,
Hmm.
and it's like life is a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but then I'm like, well, that's I'm not a Klingon, so that really doesn't apply. So uh, a lot of people think life is a game, and people are pieces you move around. In other words, they're manipulative. I don't go
Mm.
that far, right? But that's probably a dumb answer, and I probably shouldn't have said it that way. But um, I don't know. I mean, obviously, board games and role playing games and computer games, right? But
Mm-hmm.
um, there's more to it than that. You know, I don't know. I'm not answering the question very well,
Oh,
so
that's
let's
okay.
just move on.
It's kind of an intense question. It's just something because I also have a gamer brain. I think I've always really enjoyed games. And
Mhm.
and so it's something I kind of think about for myself in terms of like, well, what is a game and why is it that I engage in so many different games, whether it's video games or board games or whatever. And one thing, so CJ the X, who I bring up a lot because I love them and I love what they do. Had a conversation with someone who was, I believe, a professor of game theory, and talks about games as being a situation in which we willingly impose obstacles that we need to overcome.
Mhm.
And so there's something about that I think really registers with me in terms of like, and I think you could apply that to any of the games that we're talking about, where it's like, okay, like, and hardcore especially is like, I'm going to self-impose these obstacles that I now have to overcome.
Right.
There's something about that feeling and also engaging in strategy and problem solving and creativity with how am I going to overcome that obstacle that is something that I really enjoy and that registers with me. So I was just curious what that's like for you and what your relationship to games is, I guess.
Without games, I don't think I would be a very happy person.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it- they're intellectual exercises as much as emotional exercises, and the more you are invested, it's hard to get invested in like a board game, right? Like if I play Monopoly, it's not, I'm not invested. I mean,
Oh,
I'm
you
playing
haven't played Monopoly with my family.
yeah. I'm I'm playing Monopoly right now, just trying to exist in this culture,
That
right?
oh
So
man, amen to that. That's
uh
so true.
yeah, so that's what I was talking about kind of with the game with life pieces, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're kind of engaged in, right?
Mhm.
um but I I I'm not sure exactly how I can answer the question, so forgive me if I stumble a little bit
You're
here.
good. Yeah.
Um, my relationship with gaming in general is that it's an outlet,
Mhm.
right? Um, but there's emotional attachment to games, like you're saying about hardcore. Uh, I guess one of my more famous death clips is when I lost my warlock in the mines in Arathi Highlands, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you know. So I woke my mom up when I did that because it was kind of late at night, and she was like, "What the hell were you yelling about last night?" And I'm like, "Well, I
Mhm.
lost my level 27 warlock," and she's like, "Will you please keep quiet? You
Yeah.
woke
Yeah.
me up." So there's emotional attachment to games that don't exist with board games.
Hmm.
So there's definitely that limit there. There's emotional attachment uh, to role playing games and to the characters you create,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, but there's intellectual intellectual attachment to games like Monopoly.
Sure.
Um, but it and that goes even stronger for role playing games or computer games or whatever. Did I answer your question or even come
Totally.
close?
No, so it sounds like the idea of like having characters and a narrative has it where you're more emotionally connected. Is that the idea?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to get. Narrative is the word I was struggling for.
Yeah.
So,
No, that totally
uh,
makes sense.
if I'm invested in what's going on, I'm definitely more into it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I'm definitely more likely to come back.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm not going to play Monopoly with people probably more than once, you
Yeah.
know. But I'll whip some ass in a game of Battleship. It's on.
Oh, okay.
So
Emotionally invested in those
I,
ships.
I love Battleship. It's always fascinated me as a game. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think too, going back to this idea of narrative, it makes sense for you as a writer and as a reader, like to be
mm.
connected to the story. Like that totally makes sense to me.
And one of the things I always wanted to do when I was younger, I maybe was influenced by Star Trek or whatever,
Mm.
but I wanted to be a ship captain.
Okay.
I wanted to command a warship.
Yeah.
And so I looked into joining the Navy at one point, and I realized there's no way I would ever qualify to be an officer in the U.S. Navy. So
Mm.
I just didn't have the chops.
Yeah.
And so I also wanted to be a combat pilot. I wanted to fly. There's a particular aircraft that the military uses called an A-10 Warthog,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a ground attack craft. It's designed to kill tanks, enemy tanks and bunkers and that kind of thing. And it is a impressive piece of hardware. It
Mm-hmm.
carries a huge amount of armament, and it's almost impossible to shoot down.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this plane is everything to me. I want to fly this plane. And then I realized to be a pilot, you have to have good vision, which I don't, and you have to know math, which I don't. And so which I've always had a problem with math,
Yeah.
and which frustrates the hell out of me, but it is what it is. And uh, so I couldn't be a pilot. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, so
There's something cool about games too, allowing us to experience that if we can't experience it in
right,
real life. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
uh, that's why I'm such a big Star Trek fan. It's why I love playing games like Battleship.
Yeah.
So
That makes
yeah,
total sense. Yeah.
gravitate to what makes sense to me. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. T. Miller says, I can relate a lot to what you said about the amount of effort it takes to be social sometimes. At times it takes genuine effort.
Hmm.
Do you have strategies to use to combat that if it happens while you're live?
I take a moment to. That's a first of all, it's a great question. I
Yeah.
take a moment to. I mean, sometimes I have a little privacy drop down on my camera, a little physical thing. I just
Mm,
drop down and I'm like, look, I need 5 minutes. I'll turn my microphone off. I'll turn my camera off or whatever, and I'll get up and walk away from the computer. That doesn't, weirdly enough, though, it doesn't happen very often. But when it does happen, it's usually the excuse I use is I need to go to the bathroom. You know, so I step away. Even if I don't go to the bathroom, I step away to take a couple of deep breaths, and then I come back.
sure.
But that doesn't happen very often. Um, but it has happened in the past. So uh, I have a. It's kind of strange. Kind of have a high tolerance for it, um, which lasts about 2.5 to 3 hours.
Mm,
And then
mhm.
if I go beyond that, it's like you'll see me get to a point where I'm all right. We're doing this, and then I'll either get real quiet or I'll do something like. Ugh. And when I do that, that's when I've hit my limit or I'm getting close to it.
Yeah.
It's like that first checkpoint. Okay, your energy level is at 25%. Get ready to raid somebody and get out. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but as for strategies, I try to just push through it. I try to think, okay, I have a goal in mind of X amount of hours, or I want to get to this level or accomplish this activity, and I try to just get to those as fast as possible. So basically, the answer is I just gut it out,
Yeah.
and maybe that's not the best strategy, but
Well, it
yeah,
sounds like though if there's a limit that if you do need to take a break and take care of yourself that you do, and I think that's
yeah,
really important. So, certainly like yeah, try to gut it out, try to push through it, but also like I'm really inspired by I need to take some of that to heart. This idea of like if you need to take a break and take some time for yourself in the middle of your stream, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
there's a gentleman I follow who has a 10-minute intermission in the middle of his stream.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "All right, I'm taking a 10-minute intermission. I'll be
Mm-hmm.
back." And he has a little old style, curtains from an old style movie
I
theater, and
love
he
that.
plays some kind of video or something, and he's gone for 10 minutes. He comes back, "All right, I've gotten some more coffee and I'm ready to go."
Yeah,
And
totally.
it's like I need to do something like that,
Yeah.
and so I've kind of been inspired by his
Mm-hmm.
take a break screen.
Yeah.
So
It's nice to have like clips kind of ready to go or like a BRB screen and intermission screen. I think that's really smart. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Something that I meant to ask you earlier and totally forgot to ask. Where did the name WonderGoon come from?
uh, I was wondering when you were going to ask
Yeah,
that.
I totally spaced it. I don't know why. I think maybe just because I've known you for so long. I'm like, yeah, you're just WonderGoon. Like I never even thought about it. But yeah, where did that come from?
uh, Back a few years ago, back around, I say a few years ago, like it's just 2 years ago, but it was back around 2006 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've never been a really religious person, but I kind of got into spirituality and paganism and so forth. And so I joined a website and to talk about paganism and that kind of thing, and applying it in your life and that kind of thing. And then when I was sitting there trying to come up with a name, I was like, what am I going to call myself on this website?
Mm-hmm.
And I want it to be kind of fun. And I was actually in a good mood that day, which is rare at times for me. So I was like, Wonder Apple, no. Wonder Nerd, no. Goon, Wonder Goon. Okay, sure, Wonder Goon. And
Yeah.
so I just typed it in, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
and that was it. And so yeah, it came about because I wanted to learn more about paganism, and
Interesting.
that kind of thing. And then I learned what I needed to learn and reached the end of my interest in paganism, and walked away from the site, and walked away from spirituality and religion and so forth. But I kept the name, and
Yeah.
that's where it came from. So
Nice. So just came from a need and then it sounded cool, it sounds like.
yeah,
Yeah. That's
and
totally
people were
valid.
yeah, people on the site were like, "I love your name," and I'm like, "Cool, me too."
Yeah. It's
So
great. Yeah, I love it. T. Miller says, yeah, it sounds like you kind of have to be structured or purposeful going into your streams.
right. I try to, everyone says, come up with a couple of topics to talk about, and that's the worst thing for me to actually do, because
Mm,
I just, like I said earlier, stream of conscious
yeah.
talking, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I do try to have a goal in mind with every one of my streams. I want to get 3 levels today on my whatever I'm playing in hardcore.
Sure.
I want
Yeah.
to I want to stream for 2 hours today, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't always achieve those goals. I don't always meet those goals. Uh, Sometimes I'll stream longer or shorter, or I won't get to them, or I'll go way over them.
Yeah.
So it just depends. Everything seems to be sort of fly by the seat of your pants kind of uh, with me when it comes to streaming. But I try very hard to have a goal in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, at one point during when I first started, I would have level goal 10 or level goal number, and that would be the goal I would try to get to. I'd put it on the stream. But I got to the point where I was like, that's kind of making me a liar. So
Mm.
I need to stop doing that.
Yeah. That's
So
fair. Well, and it is, you know yourself best, right? And so, like, what works for other people may not work for you. So
right.
maybe other people really need to have a couple of topics that they're ready for. And for you, and I think I'm similar, it's like, nah, it's better for me to just kind of go in and just free ball it, for lack of a better word. Right? Though it's true. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
easier to just kind of, I mean, for me, again, it's different for other people, but for me it's easier to just kind of stream of conscious, go into it, react rather than act sometimes, you know?
Right, right. And a lot of that I think is I'm sort of hopeful and dependent on uh feedback from the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that doesn't come, when there's no one there, or there's people there but they're not saying anything, it's like it sounds like I'm just sort of randomly saying words that happen to somehow form sentences
Yeah.
because, quantum mechanics or something. And it so it comes off as being, what is this person even talking about,
Yeah.
so um maybe that's off-putting for some people, but it's like, well, I need some kind of feedback to sort of spark me sometimes. So
Mm.
that's why, to me, I'm gonna have to start writing down some notes.
Okay. Yeah.
This topic, this topic. I try to avoid, the big topics. I don't talk about religion. I don't talk about politics. That kind of thing. So, and that cuts out, a lot of conversation points, right?
Mm-hmm.
But those two topics are so reactionary, and people sometimes have such reactionary responses to them that it's just safer to not talk about them.
Yeah.
Has that been your experience as well?
No, well, I, so for me, I think that my existence and the existence of anyone that has marginalized identities is inherently political. So this word politics is interesting because no, I'm not necessarily going to talk about like our the presidential race or the mayoral race going on in my, so talking about like politics in terms of who are you voting for, politicians. I may not bring that up, but in terms of, the political nature of being queer, the political nature of being fat, the political nature of being black or indigenous or a person of color, right? Like those things I very much want to engage in conversations about,
Hmm.
knowing that they're reactionary. And I think it's because we need to talk about those things, right? And so there's an element of, emotional labor that goes with that. But I I don't want to shy away from those conversations. But you're right, it is reactionary. I talk about religion a lot too, because my religious upbringing, the kind of older I get and the more I come into my own, I realize how much it fucked me up. So it's something that I think when we talk about Twitch being a liberating space, it's one of the first spaces where I'm like, oh, I can talk about this, and maybe other people need to talk about this too. So it's, I see a lot of streamers have the like no politics, no religion, none of that, and I understand it. But I feel very opposite of that in some ways, because at the end of the day, this space is for me more than it is for anyone else, and I think kind of going back to what you said, like I want to attract the weird that I am in the world. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, and in terms of it being reactionary, I think that generally speaking, because I am so loud about what I believe and who I am, that those are the kind of people that I attract to my stream. And people that are against that make it pretty clear, and make it pretty easy to go, okay, this is not a stream for you, right? I also think that it's created, sorry, I'm just going to go off.
No.
But I also think it's created a space where people who are curious and questioning certain aspects of who they are able to explore that in a kind of more controlled environment. So I've found it to be really rewarding to make space for those kinds of conversations.
I'm going to alter my way of doing things because
You
I
don't have
agree with
to,
that.
like,
No, I agree with that 100%. You know, it says on my channel, it says WonderGoon, right? It's my space. I define it, right? So, yeah, I think I'm gonna start having those conversations, and I already have had those conversations as I
Yeah.
spoke to earlier. So, will we talk about presidential indictments and that kind of thing? No.
Yeah.
Though there may be a time where we will, but I'm going to talk about who I am and what it matters to me and how it affects me.
Yeah.
That's my
Totally.
space. It's my yeah. You've changed my mind. Yeah. So
And
this
it's,
is what I'm talking about. I like learning new things
oh
and changing
geez.
perspectives.
I
So
think it's just,
good on you, Abbers.
oh geez. Oh geez. And I do think that you need to take care of yourself first and foremost. And so there might be
Right.
days where, in terms of like feeling chronically ill or chronic fatigue or dealing with our mental illness, right? Like there are days where maybe you don't have the energy for that and you just want to play your game and have fun. And that's valid too, right?
Mhm.
You don't always have to have these deep conversations. But when you do have the space and energy for it, and when you are interested in having those conversations, I think voices like yours are really important for people to hear. So I just appreciate having this time to kind of get to know you more and talk to you, because I think there's so much about this that I always kind of knew about you because of just how you carry yourself on stream, but to actually hear, about your background and your point of view, like it's really lovely and it's really needed. We need WonderGoons in the world. You know what I mean?
I don't know about that, but thank you.
We do. I think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
Of
So,
course, yeah. Something Fenaria said earlier. Fenaria said, it's easier behind the computer screen for me since I can end it at will versus being in person.
right. When I started, I didn't have a camera,
Mm-hmm.
and I was comfortable with not having a camera. And there are sometimes I'll just stream without the camera. I'll put a little chat cover on it and whatever, and I'll say at the beginning of the stream, I'm not using a camera because I'm ugly and I don't want you to look at me, or something to that effect. So yeah, she's absolutely correct. It's much easier to just be a voice than it is to be a face.
Yeah.
So and a voice. So
Yeah.
it's comforting,
Yeah.
and it's hard. You have to remind yourself that there are people behind the names. There are people,
Mm-hmm.
they have feelings too. They're not just. I, I have to remind myself sometimes that y'all are real,
Yeah.
and you're not. This is not a computer game that I'm playing.
Mm-hmm.
Twitch is not. Y'all are not NPCs. You're
Right. Right.
so, or are you?
Do 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 do. It is. It's really important to remember, like, there is a human being behind that screen name. And I think it
Right.
is very easy to kind of, like, I don't know, detach from that, or separate those ideas in some way. So, and I think too, kind of going back to the numbers game and the anxiety around numbers, it's really important to remember, like, no, there's two people in my chat right now that decided to click on my stream and decided to spend their time with me. Like, that's, I I don't know about you, spending a day with more than two people is a lot and kind of overwhelming if I'm talking about, like, outside of Twitch. So to, like, keep into perspective, I think that helps me to stay grounded thinking about it in
Right.
that way, you know. Um Twitch chat, thank you so much for your questions and for engaging in these conversations. If anyone has more questions, let us know and
Yeah,
we'll
please,
definitely
please.
get to those. WonderGoon, what are some things that have surprised you since you started streaming?
That people are willing to watch
Mm,
and to engage, to follow, to support.
yeah,
Um, I'm not one of those streamers who get, you know, a lot of financial support. So anytime someone opens their wallet to give bits or to give donations or to subscribe, is amazing to me.
yeah,
So if you have ever given bits or subscribed or given a dono to my channel, thank you so very kindly. And I it's humbling when that happens, you
yeah,
know. Um, so I guess in short answer, the generosity of people, you know,
yeah,
both with time, with their thoughts, and with their wallets. So
sure. Yeah, definitely. Do you have any pre-stream or post-stream rituals or things that you do before your stream or after your stream?
before my stream, I make sure. I mean, the setup, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But I take a deep breath. I stretch. I make sure I have refreshment, water or whatever nearby. Um, Sometimes I'll go for a walk to clear my head. Most of the time I don't. I need to do that more often.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then after stream, I probably just, like I said earlier, I'm kind of up for about 10 minutes. I engaged in social activity and I'm kind
Yeah,
of riding that high, if you will.
yeah,
And then, depending on what I have going on, like I have a game after this, right?
yeah,
I'm going to be going and doing that. But most of the time, I just sit back on my bed and snuggle with my dog or play with my cat or read or something like that. So I'm
yeah.
just like you. I'm a normal person who's making their way in the world, like the folks in chat. So it's all.
They're just
What are
like us. The WonderGood's just
Yeah,
like us, everyone.
yes, yes. What's scarier is you all are just like me. Think about
Interesting.
that.
Mm-mm.
Um, I want to turn that around. What are some of your?
Ooh, setup for sure, for sure. And beverages, I always make sure I have like water definitely, and then maybe coffee or like a soda or something.
Javi!
Javi,
Exclamation point
Javi.
coffee in the chat.
And then after stream, usually a snack, and then sometimes depending on the time of day, like a snack would be part of like pre-stream, right? Especially if I know I'm gonna do a really long stream, I want to make sure that I've eaten. So yeah, then after stream, like probably food, and then like I don't know, I'll maybe look at my metrics after. I yeah, I would say most of the time I do. And also highlight the VOD if I'm gonna save the footage for whatever reason. So I try to do that kind of right away after, because otherwise I have a tendency to forget.
Mhm.
Um, and then I'll maybe watch the person that I've rated, depending, and if not, I'll just leave a tab up for them if I don't really have the energy to be part of their stream at that time. And then yeah, I don't know, like you said, maybe go lay down, maybe go on about my day. It just kind of depends on the day, I guess. But those are the general kind of things. Yeah.
Of all the times you've done this podcast, no one has ever asked you these
Well, I
questions.
think eventually if you want to know a secret, you in chat get to know a secret. I
Ooh,
want
secrets.
episode 100, which will be a long time from now. You're episode 12. But I
Woohoo!
think episode 100, I'd like to have turn the tables and have someone interview me. So it'll
I
it'll happen at some point.
I,
Yeah.
I nominate T Miller.
Okay. All right. I like that. I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
because you guys have been such friends for such a long time. I
Yeah.
think that interaction would be amazing.
I was gonna say,
So
you describing your friendship with Kessidrith absolutely reminded me of me and T Miller, like 100%. I was like, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. Um, let's see. Venaria says, Pip was asking, will Abbers have one where she says why she goes live? There we go. We got it. Yes, eventually. Pip, yes, eventually I will. It'll be a while from now. And also, T Miller accepts. Told him episode 100. Perfect. Yeah, that's my plan. I
excellent.
was like, we'll do it as a very like special kind of like, I don't know, marker. So that'll be a while from now because I only do 2 a month. But yeah, episode 100 will make it happen. Yeah.
I hope I'm able to around to see that one. So
Yeah, me too. I was gonna say, how does the math shake out on that? It'll be like end of next year, maybe. I don't know. Don't math me. Don't math me, anyone. Okay.
I can barely add and subtract, so you're not getting any
Right?
math from me.
Yeah.
So
No, I fully get that.
you mentioned the metrics. Yeah, I check my metrics also,
Yeah.
and my relationship to the numbers is uh, kind of strange because I again I want a lot of people in the chat,
Hmm.
but um, and I don't mind a lot of conversation. Just understand I'm gonna miss people's comments.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, that's very important to me. The
Yeah.
numbers are. I made the comment last night. I'm very much a niche, very niche of niche micro internet celebrity of my 3 pixels of the internet, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it's important that I have at least that reach,
Yeah.
in a way. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, for me, I check them out of habit. I check them out of curiosity because there are some streams where I'm like, huh, this felt like a very quiet one, and sometimes it confirms it. It's like, yep, this was a quiet one. Or the opposite, where it's like, oh, there were a bunch of people there. They were just not talking, kind of a thing. So it's interesting. Sometimes that's my kind of motivation for checking it. And also, like you said, and I think it's important to be honest about it. I think the numbers are important to us. And I think that's okay.
mhm.
I think that I'm very intentional about not having my viewer count on while I'm streaming, because it would affect me too much in the moment. But I do check after. I'd be lying if I said I didn't.
Right. Like I don't know. I don't have your stream up right now where I can see it. I popped out the
Don't
chat.
tell me, it's one of my
Yeah.
rules. Don't tell me my viewer
Yeah.
count.
I don't even know, so I can't tell you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I hope it's like 5,000 people,
Hmm.
but
It's
uh,
definitely like a million people right now.
a million.
100%.
I
Yeah.
will accept.
Yeah.
I will accept a million viewers for my appearance on this show.
Well, yes, it's
Hello, a
all because
million
of you.
people.
Thank you,
That's
WonderGoon.
right.
Appreciate it.
I brought my community
You
here.
really did,
My
though.
million dollar,
Honestly,
my million person community.
we've got a lot of WonderGoon fans in the chat. It's very cool. It's very exciting. Um, WonderGoon, what is some advice you would give your younger streamer self?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Hmm.
I tried to be perfect very early on, and everything has to sound perfect, and I have to use my radio voice. I was a DJ for a while, so I have that
Okay.
radio voice, and I don't use it very often, but I tried to be, well, this is WonderGoon on the WonderGoon radio network,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of thing. And I tried to make everything perfect. I tried not to mess up and misspeak and like I've been doing today, but now my normal speech pattern is like stream of consciousness kind of thing, and I'm like, I'm just going to engage with my normal speaking cadence, and
Yeah.
if people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to you have to understand that you are not going to be everybody's cup of tea,
Yep.
and it's okay if people don't like tea.
Mm-hmm.
um and it's okay if no one likes you.
Mm-hmm.
you know uh that's the one piece of advice I would think. Be prepared and accept and learn from your failures. And it took me a while to get that.
Hmm.
But once it clicked, it's made my life as a streamer a lot more smooth.
Yeah.
Um, and I understand, not everyone is going to want to see this face. Not everyone is want to hear this voice. Not everyone is going to look at my content, and that's okay,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I would throttle my younger self. Get the, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. Be kind to your younger self.
yeah,
Your younger self is always doing the best they can. You know what I mean?
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Past WonderGoon is uh not I wouldn't say an idiot, ignorant about certain things,
Yeah.
but kind to present WonderGoon in so many ways as
Yeah.
well. You
That's
know,
great. I'd love
so
to hear that. Yeah. Do you have any goals or projects in mind for the future of your stream?
um I'd like to unlock all the emote slots that I can have, you know.
Yeah.
Um which of course requires subscriptions, right? So I feel awkward about asking people for money, or remind people that, hey, if you like it, subscribe. I
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
rarely do that. Um, but I at some point I would like to have all the emote slots
Yeah.
unlocked that I'm entitled, if you will, to have,
Yeah.
or capable of having.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One day, many many years in the future, I would like to be a full-time streamer, content creator,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not going to happen within the next. I would not expect to be a full-time content creator for another 10 years or so.
Yeah.
I just don't have the numbers, I don't have the reach, and the content, while it's decent content, is not good enough to be a full-time, right?
Mm.
So I have to work on my content. I have to build a better community, not a better community, but a more expansive community. I have to have, and to do that, I need better content.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I need to. I think the adage is, if you stick to one game, you build a community. But my experience is, when I stream games that are not World of Warcraft, I get people who want to see that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I still
Mm-hmm.
have that sense of community. When I stream World of Warcraft, I get the World of Warcraft viewers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there are viewers who don't want to see WoW, and so if you play it, they will come.
Yeah.
So the that old adage of stick to one game hasn't necessarily been the right way to go for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if it works for other people, I'm certainly not trying to stop them from doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely. That all makes sense to me. Well, I think we're going to wrap things up here. So, as is tradition on the podcast, WonderGoon, we're going to end things with a 10-question questionnaire. And this is inspired by James Lipton, Bernard Pivot, and CJ the X. So, just, again, stream of consciousness, kind of first thing that pops to mind. Are you ready?
nope. But go ahead.
Okay, love it. Which game or activity do you love to stream the most?
Um, World of Warcraft.
Which game or activity do you hate to stream the most?
World of Warcraft.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Creatively is the act of creation itself. Creating a world for D&D, or creating characters to inhabit a gaming world, is something that is amazing and exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritually, not much. I don't have a spiritual life. I'm not a spiritual person. I don't ascribe to any religious belief. In fact, I'm very critical of religious belief and in general. So that, not much on that point. What was the third one? Personal,
Emotionally.
emotionally. Genuine people, honesty, um, interest,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and dogs and cats, and my
Mm-hmm.
wife. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Creatively is triteness.
Mm.
If it's been done, then even if you're trying to put your own spin on it, it's still been done. So try to find something more unique. That's not to say that I don't lift and copy and alter things all the time. It's just I hate myself when I do it, um, because I try to create something unique and put that uniqueness out into the world. Even if it's just for 4 or 5 sweaty nerds on Discord. Um, so uh, i- as far as spiritually, everything about giving up your sense of control and self to something outside yourself turns me off completely.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, if that's your thing, and if you want to believe in a power outside yourself, or forces outside yourself, yeah, go for it. But don't expect me to live by your standards, because I'm not. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
um, it's fine for you to believe it, but when you want to make me start believing it, then we're going to have an issue.
Mhm.
And it's going to be devolve very quickly into a bad time for both of us. Um, Emotionally, my turnoffs are probably what a lot of people's are, is hate, is bigotry. Um, it's people who it's indifference.
Mm.
If you are indifferent to another person's suffering, then that lack of empathy is a major turnoff. You
Mhm.
know, um, I don't like that there's such pain and hatred in the world, and I wish that I could just snap my fingers and end it. And with all the bad things that are happening in the world, the one thing there's a movie called Bruce Almighty. I don't know if you've heard of that one or
Yeah,
not.
I've
Jim
seen it.
Carrey.
Yeah.
If that happened to me, I would I would be a vengeful god. I would Things would change on this planet,
Mhm.
and for a lot of people, for the worse in a lot of ways. So it's probably a really good thing something like that doesn't happen,
Hmm.
because people would explode, um, and I mean that literally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so it's a very good thing that I'm not a god, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
Which streamer would you like to meet most in real life?
Hmm. I don't know. I know I really don't think about meeting streamers in person. Um,
That's fair.
I don't know that I can really answer that, because if I say like if I say a female streamer, it's like people are gonna think that I'm like wanting to be with that person, right? And it's just there's a creep factor to that, right? I mean, there's a barrier there for a reason, right? And we could be friends, but and if it develops beyond friendship, that's one thing. But I never set out to be anything more than a follower or a subscriber. And if I develop a friendship with a streamer, then that's one thing. But I don't set out for that to happen, right?
Mhm.
So I don't think about meeting streamers in person.
Mhm.
It's just not something that's on my mind.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
uh, so no one, I guess.
Okay.
So,
What's something you would like to try on stream but never have?
real good content. Um,
Oh,
uh,
Goon.
no, uh, I don't know. That's a good question. I think I'd like to have like a game show type thing.
Hmm. Mhm.
There was the hardcore community does this occasionally. They'll do like a Jeopardy style. Chicken Basket does this, where he'll do a Jeopardy style game show with questions about hardcore and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Some kind of game show I think would be a lot of fun, with various people on the stream. To kind of just have a bunch of laughs and have some fun.
Mhm.
So I think that would be fun for a night.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know. Um, but beyond that, I don't know. Everything is for me. Everything is so fly by the seat of my pants that I've never really thought about that too often. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
So
What's
sorry if I'm
something?
not. Go
That's
ahead.
okay. Are you sure?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
What's something you would never want to do on stream?
Good content. No, I don't know. Fail too much. Um, being embarrassed. I hate being embarrassed,
Mm,
and I don't. I don't want to look like a fool. I mean, any
mm,
more than I normally do. Right.
mm-hmm,
Um, I don't. I don't want to be. I don't want to be thought of as a fool, and I try not to do activities that would force that perception.
mm-hmm,
So I try to speak carefully. I try to present carefully. Um, so yeah, I guess looking like a fool or being embarrassed would be a bad thing.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I do. We all do, right? We all mess up. We all look like an idiot sometimes, and we all run afoul of those things. But I try to minimize it. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. WonderGoon, why do you go live?
For the social interaction.
Mm-hmm. Follow up question. Why do you
Mhm.
really go live?
The money, baby. No, no, the social interaction. I try to just talk to people and have fun with it. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Final question.
okay.
You're on your deathbed. You know exactly how much time you have. You have any and all resources available to you. Your
Mhm.
viewer count doesn't matter. Commercial viability doesn't matter. What do you do for your final stream on Earth?
I'm not going to say my first thought because that's well. I mean, it's my final stream. What are they going to do? Ban
Yeah.
me? I'm dead.
Yeah.
I would. My first thought, and I probably will. It's just a stupid thought. My first thought was like take an enormous poop.
Okay.
Just go out on that. This has been my stream career. You know,
Fair enough.
but I probably, in all fairness, the thing I would do is just simply thank people for showing up. Thank people for the questions. Thank people for the support and the love they showed me, and wish everybody farewell and remind people to live peacefully.
Yeah.
So
WonderGoon, thank you so much for being here.
thank you for having me. This was a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for your very thoughtful and honest answers. I really appreciate it. If you
No
all
problem.
aren't already, go follow WonderGoon on all the things. You can go follow him on Twitch, obviously, YouTube. We got his Twitter link. And then also, WonderGoon, I would love for you to choose who we raid. Who are we going to send this love to?
Who is on? I don't even see who is
Yeah,
on.
if you want to take a minute to figure that out. Meanwhile, chat, I'm going to go ahead and type in our raid message here. So if you could do me a favor and copy paste that, that way they know that WonderGoon sent us. Let me see. And thank you, Twitch chat, for being here, for engaging in this conversation, and for hanging out. It's always so nice to have you all here.
Okay. Um, I think I would like to raid this person.
Okay.
Put it in the Twitch chat or
Twitch chat would be great. Yeah, that would be super helpful.
this is Cozy Kyra. Cozy is a trans YouTuber,
And you know what? Can
and
you turn your face to the microphone and say that again, WonderGoon?
okay,
Because we can't hear you. Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is Cozy Kyra,
Okay.
and she is a trans VTuber, and she is looking at her YouTube stuff right now. So she's just chilling and vibing. She's in a just chatting stream right now. So
Perfect.
uh, I always want to give support to the trans community whenever possible. And since yesterday was the Trans Day of Visibility, this would be a perfect opportunity to
Let's do it.
show some trans people on stream. So
Love it. So we're gonna go hang out with Cozy Kyra. She, her pronouns. Thank you all again, guys. Type in the chat. WonderGoon sent us. Let Cozy Kyra know that WonderGoon is the reason for the season. And if you or someone you know would be a good guest on Why We Go Live, you can send an email to whywegolive@gmail.com. That's WHYWEGOLIVE@gmail.com. You can also follow Why We Go Live on all the different socials. Good. Thank you again. So much
Thank
fun.
you.
Let's
Thank
go ahead
you.
and
I had
kick
a
it over
blast.
to Cozy Kyra. Let's go.
Y'all have a good day. Be safe. Love y'all.
Love it. Let's see. Let me type in the raid message here real quick. We're still live. I'm going to stop streaming.